We're live. Good morning, friends. How are you? Welcome to this episode of FCBDU's podcast. My name is Deanna. I am your host, and I am joined today by two very special people in my life and here at FCBDU. Um, there we go. I guess we are live because there we go. I'm joined by very special people here on FCBDU. First and foremost, I have Carolina here. Good morning, Carolina.
Good morning, Deanna.
As we know, Carolina is the creator of Fat Chance Belly Dance Style, aka ATS, American Tribal Style. And I am really excited today to present our very new instructor here at FCBDU, Virginia. Hello, Virginia.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be part of FCBDU.
Yay, I'm really excited as well. I'm Today we're going to learn all about Virginia and we're going to learn all about her offers here on FCBDU. So I'd love to just kind of first of all thank everyone for joining us, whether you're joining us live or you're listening later. And a special thank you to our members, because without you, we couldn't do these fabulous events that we put out there for the community. So be sure that you like and subscribe to all of the things and share this out to all of your friends, all of your students, and all of your fellow dancers. So today we're going to learn a little bit more about Virginia, and we're also going to talk about transitions. So I love this time of year as we transition from one season to the next. So of course, as we know in the Northern Hemisphere, we're transitioning from winter into spring. So things are starting to bloom and blossom, and we get to really experience the beauty that happens as we transition from one period into the next. And of course, we have several friends down in the Southern Hemisphere that are experiencing that transition from, is it fall to winter, right? That like kind of turning inward. So just transitions in general as they pertain to our life, but specifically here as they pertain to dance. So first and foremost, welcome, Virginia. I'm so thrilled that you're here with us. It's been a long time coming. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, like a little bit about your background in dance, specifically in Fat Chance Belly Dance Style. And yeah, just to like, maybe we could start there.
Sure. So I started dancing in 2007, and back then I was living in Athens, Ohio, because I was working at Ohio University, and I started taking just like a random belly dance class with a professor from Ohio University who was from Syria, and I don't think she had any training in belly dance. She was just teaching belly dance. And I liked it, but it wasn't really, something that I really connected with. But then there was this girl that came to class and had a tassel belt on. And I was like, oh, what is that you're wearing? And she said, this is tribal belly dance. And I was like, oh, what is that? So I went online and I looked it up and I found, of course, Fat Chance belly dance. And I saw a video of a performance and I was like, this is what I want to do. So I started to look for classes around the area. And of course, there was nothing in Athens, but I found something in Columbus, Ohio. So I started driving there. It was 75 minutes each way. And I took that drive once a week just to take classes with Sacred Shimmy. And I took classes while I was in Ohio. And then when it came time to move, because my contract at Ohio University expired, I started looking for jobs. And one of the things that I did while I was looking for jobs was at the same time looking to make sure that ATS was offered at the places where I was looking for jobs. And I landed in Bloomington, Indiana, and it had an ATS troop that was called Darkside Tribal at that point. And I got the job, and then I started taking classes with Darkside. And so I continued my training with them. And then eventually, when the troop director moved, I took over and I started teaching the classes. And that was after I did, of course, general skills and teacher training. With Carolina and Mega in 2010. And then I just took over the direction of the troop. And since then, I've continued my training because I believe that you are never done with taking classes. and I did advanced teacher training, technique for teachers, all of the courses that I could, just so that I can always continue to give the best that I can to my students. So since 2007, I've been exclusively teaching and taking fat chance belly dance style. I've started to take other styles of belly dance since then, but fat chance belly dance has always been my passion and the one that I've always gravitated to.
Yeah. I love that story, and I missed the part, like, I never thought about it, I guess we never talked about it, how you started in Ohio, with Sacred Shimmy, right? Such as I love how we can just move across the country, different states, wherever, and we can just connect with other instructors. So, was it Angie at Sacred Shimmy?
Uh-huh. It was
Yeah.
Angie, and it was fantastic because then we ended up doing advanced teacher training together, which,
Oh.
it was just mind-blowing to me that I ended up doing that level of training with my first teacher. Yeah, it was just fantastic, like full circle
I was
to
gonna say,
me.
like, a full circle, there
Yeah.
you guys were at the Fat Chance studio taking this
Yeah.
advanced level training together. Oh,
Hmm.
a little teary-eyed. That's so sweet. Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
That's kinda how I felt with, so when I took advanced teacher training, I took it with Liz, of course, as you know,
Hmm.
and then many other people, but then, like, our Mega was our teacher, so it was like we were all going to the Fat Chance studio and getting this training from our teacher with Carol. Yeah, it's just I love these connections that we create in dance.
And going to that studio too that you saw, in on Facebook and then photos, and because going to San Francisco was not that feasible for all of us. So when I finally was able to make it there and take my photo with the logo above the door, like that was like like a fan moment for me. So being
Yes.
able to spend 2 weeks there just exclusively training, it was just, yeah, it was amazing.
Ah, so good, so good. And so your daytime, I'm gonna in quotes, your daytime job, you are a professor, right?
Yes, yes, and no. So I'm a lecturer, so I'm not tenure track, I should say, because there's a difference between a tenure track position and non-tenure track. So I'm not tenure track, I'm a teaching professor. So I don't do research, I teach at Indiana University. Yes,
Yeah.
long story short, sorry. Yes.
No, that's okay. And I love that your whole profession is teaching, and then here you are teaching belly dance and understanding the importance of continuing your education and always learning and that inspiration that comes.
Hmm.
And then outside of belly dance, you are also a coach at Orange Theory.
I am. Yes, I've worn many hats. I've also been a yoga teacher. I was for many years, and I did aerial yoga as well with the silk hammocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but I am an Orange Theory coach, and I love doing that. So I think I can say teaching is my vocation. That's what I've always loved to do, and yeah, I love teaching anything really.
Yeah, and I see that in your classes as well, like, just being very like, you're very straightforward, you're very clear in your instruction, and, I had not I mean, we had met before, but at different events, but, one of my favorite memories of us together is teaching at Technique for Teachers in Santa Fe with Carolina
Mhm.
and Mega. Yeah, and those memories are popping up in Facebook, right now because it's been this time, 6 years ago, and, I love it when your personality comes out, Virginia, because when you started like, we didn't really know each other, and then I would write down the comments, for the feedback for Technique for Teachers, and when you would go first, I mean, literally what I wrote down was, like, what you would be saying. I was like, "Yes! Oh my gosh, we're so on the same page." So I loved that we kind of had the same thought process in the way that the body is structured and the anatomy behind it, and just having those backgrounds in not only Fat Chance style, but, also the yoga aspect and
Mhm.
the physical aspect. And then something that I think a lot of people don't know, but it makes me just smile every time I think about it. Those photos. So for those of you that don't know, she already smiles because I don't know if Carolina remembers this because she was in front of us. So when you graduate, whether it's general skills or teacher training or technique for teachers or advanced teacher training, part of the like fun part at the end is you get your photo with your certificate and the teachers. And Virginia and I were just like standing behind Carolina and Mega, like, what do we do? We're just standing there. So every time there was another student that came up to get their photo, we would change how our hair was.
So we had about 25 different hairstyles for the photos, I think. Yeah, we got really creative with those. It was really funny.
How did you do that?
We had like a hair tie. We would just be like, I
Yeah,
don't know, we would just riff off each other. So she would be like,
yeah.
ponytail. We would just go with a ponytail. We'd be like, hair down both sides, left side, right side, side
Great.
ponytail. Like we were just
Great.
double ponytails. Like we just changed it up every time.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Virginia always comes across as like this, just really straight laced, like very serious instructor. And then at the end, we just completely just let loose and had fun. So,
Yeah, Technique for Teachers is probably one of my favorite events because you get a lot out of that training. You get a lot of like specific technique just to you because you get to dance a whole song in front of your teachers, and then you get personalized feedback that you can apply right then and there, which is not something that you necessarily can get in a bigger setting or in a workshop. So I think there's a lot of value to that training. And also you learn from the feedback that other people are getting, even if that's not the feedback that you get, it might still apply to your own dance. So yeah, that was also one of my highlights. That one, not only because I had a lot of fun with it, obviously, but also because Technique for Teachers, even as a teacher, I learned a lot from the participants and from the feedback that they received. There were things that I could even apply myself as a teacher because, like I said, I feel like everybody can always learn something new. Yeah.
yeah, I 100% agree. Thank you for putting that so eloquently. It's so true. And I don't know if you guys have the experience. I'm sure you do have the experience where after a class, a student will say, did you see if my swivel step needed any kind of adjustment? And I'm like, oh my gosh, there was so much going on. I wasn't specifically looking at you during that thing. I was trying to like gauge the whole class. And in Technique for Teachers, that's our job, is we are specifically looking at you and noticing every Carolina's got her little telescope out, noticing everything that we possibly can so that we can provide you the positive feedback, the areas of growth, the things that you did really well. That I mean, we've had instances where you see somebody dance and you're like, wow, I just learned something new by watching how you transitioned between this step and this step, And so we learn too as instructors, as we
Mhm.
should, always learning. Carolina.
I have to step away, but I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem. um, so I'm going to check in with the comments real fast, Virginia, because people
Yeah.
have chimed in and they're saying hi. Samantha Jane says she took Virginia's class earlier and loved it. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Yes,
you.
sweet. And Christina in Italy says hello. I'm not sure who Sunflower 155 is, but they said hi all from Indiana. So I'm assuming maybe you know them.
It might be one of my crew. Yeah.
Yeah. And it looks like we have somebody coming in, possibly from Ukraine. Hello, I'm so glad to see and listen to you all. My name is Hannah. Hi, Hannah. Actually, I think, Hannah, are you in Hungary? I think you're in Hungary. And then Heather Perry says, costuming is such a great introduction. Virginia is amazing. I've danced with her.
I know Heather is one of the founding members of my troupe. So yeah,
Nice.
Heather
Well,
is
I was going to
fantastic.
ask how it was called or why it came about Dark Side Tribal, but I see you said it was already named that and then you kind
Yeah.
of, so
Yeah. And
I
actually
love.
Heather is the one that named it. Yes.
Oh, great. Well, Heather, tell us in the comments, like what inspired you to name it Dark Side Tribal. So I would love to talk a little bit about, I would love to transition into the topics of transition. Here's how not to do a transition, right? About the topics of transitions. So when we were talking about classes that you may be interested in teaching here on FCBDU, you were like, yes, transitions. I would love that. So let's kind of get into some of the questions about transitions. Yeah.
Mhm.
So in your experience, why are transitions such an important thing to learn about in dance?
So I think transitions are what differentiates an advanced or like more skilled dancer from a baby dancer. And by that, I mean that you learn the steps, you learn the vocabulary, but just like when you learn a language, you start with, the grammar. And of course, I'm a language teacher, so you're able to express yourself in a more basic way, but you lack the cultural component or like the things that make the words that you're saying fit in the context of the language. So it's the same thing with the transitions. That's what allows you to move. It's like the magical moment of the group synchronization where you are able to cue a movement and everybody's able to follow it because of the way that you moved your arms. It made sense and everybody else was able to follow without hesitation. Or like it allows you to be more creative within the vocab that we have, right? Like we have a very specific way in which we move our body, but the transitions, especially in slow movements, allow you to move your arms. Say you're doing like a horizontal move, but then the way that you move your arms up, that's a transition where you can be really elegant and really specific in the way that you move. That's going to make everything be more elegant. Or it gives you a way to make like a subtle variation of the movement as you move from a horizontal to a vertical arm or to a split arm. Um, and it also, going back to the making you feel like more of an advanced dancer, like it reveals like a technical proficiency because it removes the hesitation in the movements where you don't have to pause and think of like, oh, I'm going from a swivel step to a forward and back shimmy. Like, what do I need to do? Right? Like, it becomes part of the movement in a way. So I think that's why it is important because it helps with the cohesion and the flow, just like it does with when you're learning a language.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
beautiful. The
Oh,
cohesion and the flow, just like when you're learning a language.
yeah.
Yeah, it's what makes it I love that you said it kind of differentiates the advanced level dancer from a baby dancer. So this and for like to add to that as an example, this past Monday I have so one of my dancers in my Monday class has been dancing fashion style for a really long time since before I moved to Portland. They were a student of Colette's, and just on Monday after class, she said, wow, I just experienced how I feel so much more comfortable in the steps that I can more easily flow from one to another and I'm not having to think about it so much. And I was like, congratulations. Like that's fantastic. Like that's a huge part of it. Um and I think that that might be some of the challenge between transitioning from a baby dancer to an advanced level dancer is in our classes we teach the vocabulary, right? We have an emphasis on vocabulary. And then of course in more intermediate classes we start talking about transitions, but we don't really have I'm going to say a structured way that we teach transitions. So I feel like how we teach transitions is really up to the instructor teaching them. Um, so with that being said, what do you think some challenges that dancers face when they are working on transitions? And that could be like students or even teachers trying to teach transitions.
I think, like based on what I see when I teach, overthinking
Mm,
is one of the main ones. Like I can see, I can see my students' faces, like they're dancing, but they're already thinking of what's next. So they're not focusing on the movement quality of what they're doing because they're trying to anticipate what they're doing next. So one of my goals when I teach transitions is to help them overcome that in a way that it becomes like the transitions become second nature. So based on what move they want to do, they don't have to think about what they need to do to get there. Like eventually they will know what they need to do. Another thing is and it's related to that, is the anxiety of being in the lead and having to move to another movement. Um, and that relates, of course, to confidence in being in the lead. And another challenge would be like the in between technique and
Mm.
like connecting the movements. And I think especially for slow movements, because in fast movements, it might be a little easier. You know, you're going from a vertical arm to a horizontal arm, and because everything's counted and it's on the beat, you're just going from up to down, unless you're doing maybe like a reach and seat where you go gradually up. But in slow, I find my students like really rushing through the transitions, and it is okay to slow things down and to make the transition part of the movement, make the elegant arm with the elbows lifted be part of the move or the step. Um, so I would think that would be another one. And then musicality to me is a big one. And I think that would be like the last step, right? Like we teach the steps, we teach the transitions, and then musicality would be the last thing that you learn. Like knowing when to move into the next step, especially in fast. Like when somebody moves to a different move in the middle of a phrase, I'm like, no, like
I know.
why did you start the Chico now? Like in the, in the middle of the phrase, like, but again, that comes with practice and it comes with, growing as a dancer. So, but it is definitely a challenge, right? Because then they're doing the step and they notice that like, oh, there's something wrong because the next phrase started and I haven't finished my 16 counts and it doesn't feel right, but they cannot quite identify what the issue was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that differentiator between the slow and the fast because I think that those transitions have different qualities and different
Hmm.
challenges in their own. So as you said, the slow, like dancing through the transitions and not just thinking, okay, I'm going from a wraparound turn to a figure eight or something like that, So I think that that was really important. Something that you said, I want to like back up and talk about. And I wrote down the word presence, right? So when you're not being present with the movement that you're doing because you're anticipating or you have the anxiety about how am I going to do the next thing, I feel like
Hmm.
there's a lot. I love to correlate dance and life lessons together, right? So being present in your everyday life and a lot of us always anticipate what are we doing next? Guilty, right? What are we doing next? What's the next thing that's going to happen? How do I get there? And you're just so focused on what's happening next that you're not just breathing and being present with what is now and enjoying the
Hmm.
transition from where you are now to where you're going to be. And so, if we can take that life lesson and put it into dance, and vice versa, take that dance lesson and put it into life, then we can allow ourselves the grace to flow and to be present and to slow down and to breathe and to enjoy every part of it because it's all part of the dance, right? And
Hmm.
it's all part of life, that transition from one aspect of life to the other or one part of your day to the other, which, gratitude is a huge part of moving from that part of our day where we are maybe going just like in the car, in the traffic, with the kids, whatever the case is, having that little bit of transition into your dance class with presence and breath and gratitude, um, that same type of just grace, if you will, as we transition, specifically in our slow, like just be really being present with like lifting the arms and enjoying that interoception, that like that awareness of what's going on inside of your body. Like, oh, just this feels so good energetically and physically to lift your arms overhead. And then let's just add this beautiful, gentle arm sweep here without thinking about, I got to get into the Sarah turn at this point in the music. Right? So I think that a lot of that comes with, as you said, being confident in the movements and also practicing the variations together so that you feel confident not just with this move, but how to even transition into there. And so with that, your course that you're offering on FCBDU is practice till you make it. Um, can you tell us a little bit about why you chose that title and a little bit about what we will learn? Because I'm leaning into the slow stuff because that's where the first couple of classes
Hmm.
really start.
Yeah, so I decided to focus on slow first because I feel like those transitions are harder for people to slow down with and to really milk and like you said, like take their time with. But I chose that name because we always say fake it till you make it, right? But that can only take you so far. Like yes, you can fake it, but at some point you're not gonna make it. Like you need the practice, right? And the reality is that we need practice to make progress, and we need to acknowledge that progress comes through repetition and through dedicated practice, and there's no shortcuts. And this is something that I also apply when I coach my classes, at Orange Theory. Like anything that I do, it's like you have your goals, and these goals don't happen by magic. There's no magic, it's hard work, and that's exactly why you're here. You're doing the hard work, and you're exactly where you need to be, and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So embrace the process, and embrace also a growth mindset, which means that we're not focusing just on the results but on the process. It's a journey. Yes, it is a destination, but we have to focus on the journey because it is not about talent, it's about developing the talent. And when
Mm,
we say, oh, you're so talented, but like, how about all of the hard work that I have behind me? Like, how about all of the hours of practice that I have in all of the trainings and the workshops that I've taken? It's like that. I don't know if you've seen that visual of the iceberg, and then the tip is showing, and then this is like all of my hard work that you don't see, and this is what you see, my performance. So that is the idea behind this series. Also building like a community of support where we're all, this is a space where we come to practice and to make mistakes. And this will come with, the other series that I prepared with finger symbols. You make mistakes, but you keep practicing. And that's part of that growth mindset. Like we take on the challenge in spite of, the we're putting ourselves out there and we might not necessarily make it on the first attempt. And also, that dance is it's a lifelong process, and we all get too focused on the immediate reward. Like we want things and we expect things now, and I'm going to learn this step and practice it for 5 minutes and I got it. That's not the reality. Like you have to practice it, you have to put in the time, and then you will reap the rewards after you've had that practice. And there's a quote by Bruce Lee, and I read it in this book, The Little Book of Talent, which you
oh
probably
yeah,
are
I
very
love that
familiar
book.
with, right? This
Mhm.
book is fantastic. It's got a lot of tips on how to develop talent, but it said, I fear not the man that's practiced 1,000 kicks once, but the man that's practiced one kick 1,000 times. And that's, not to foster violence, but that's that's the thing behind it, is that basically you have to practice to make perfect or to reach the goals that you have for yourself. So that's the purpose of the series, to build practice and to help you also develop not necessarily the combos that I develop for this practice, but to help you also develop your own after you get some practice with these, and to help you build your own practice at home, so that you can continue to grow as a dancer.
Yeah. I love that quote. I forgot about that quote. I read that book. Yeah, it's been several years. It's on my bookshelf. It's something that I need to read again. But it's so true, that quote, right? People watch us as teachers and they're like, but how do you get this? Or how do you get that? Or how come mine doesn't look like yours? And I'm like, do you know how many times I have done a figure eight in the last 20 years? Like, it's not gonna look the same. I mean, aside from the bodies and all of that, but like it's just
Yeah.
not gonna look the same.
It's like there's so many people that I've talked to about, they're like, oh, I wish, I want to take belly dance classes, but my body doesn't move like that. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't move like that? Like if you never take a class and you don't practice, your body will not move like that because you haven't given it the opportunity to move like that. But nobody's born belly dancing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So practice till you make it. I love
yeah,
that. I love
yeah.
it. Um, so thinking about slow or we just talked about slow and that kind of seamless transition, right? When I ask new dancers like level 1 or level 2 if they want a slow song or a fast song when they're practicing leading, and they always say slow because they can like take their time and think about what's happening. Fast, while it's easier in some ways, it's also challenging because you have to like kind of think on your feet kind of a thing, right? So what do you think are some of the more challenging aspects? Yeah, let's talk about some of the more challenging, maybe let's talk specifically about some of the more challenging transitions in fast.
Hmm.
I know I'm throwing that out there. Carolina, what do you think are maybe a few either concepts or movements that are a little hard to turn more challenging that you've noticed to transition between?
It's interesting listening, to this great conversation that is happening. And just, I'm just going to go backward before I go forward. When I first started teaching, people asked about transitions, and I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, I literally never thought about it ever. To me, you're doing whatever you're doing, and you just move into the next step. So I had to like really like slow down, focus, ask questions, and like try to understand like why do you need to know what do you mean by a transition? So um, that was my experience was I don't know what you're talking about, but regardless, it's a big deal, obviously, because a whole lot of people ask about it. I also think it's interesting that it's very describing a transition in a fast step is so the verbal description sounds so confusing. When you do it, it's just you're done. But what do I think is I think not in the footwork, but in the arm work and in the mindset. When you have to go from an overhead movement, a step that was an overhead movement, to a step that's like for instance, with the rhythmic undulation where the arms plunge down, you have to get from here to here in like a quarter of a beat. And it can feel really difficult,
Mhm.
challenging. Um, yeah, I think moving the arms quickly. Whereas our feet are just right here. They're just going, this or this or this or this. The arms have these huge gestures that they have to do and get there on time. I think that's really challenging.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think also as a beginner dancer, maybe from a rhythmic undulation to a pivot bump can be kind of challenging. The going from heels lifted to 1 foot flat. And then as a more advanced dancer, going into fades as the person in the lead because you have to
Ooh,
use the eighth count of the previous phrase to initiate the lead.
mhm.
Yeah.
That's like
Ooh, good ones,
mind
Virginia.
blowing. Yeah, I love teaching that. I spent like 2 or 3 classes just drilling that eight
Yes.
into the
Yeah.
one. Yeah, yeah.
Good. Those are really good ones.
Mm.
Um, one of the ones that I find is more challenging is coming out of spins, going into something that's not a pivot bump, right?
Like a triangle step from
A
spin.
triangle step or a sunanda or a double back, it's
Yeah.
like, whoa, changes everything. because the angle changes, or all of a sudden you're slowing the arms down going into the double bump, and having that maintaining the technique of the movement when you're coming out of the momentum of spins can be super challenging. So I think, I mean, definitely to start, I start with teaching, like just coming into a pivot bump, because I feel like it's like when you're learning how to skate and you need to learn how to stop, right? You have like that stopper with the ball of your foot. And Virginia, in your class, your description of your class talks about like, do you find yourself always going into the same movements out of the same, just repeating the same transitions, aka coming out of spins, going into a pivot bump, or coming out of this and going into that? And it's not that we're trying to trip up the people that are following us, but it's just that that tends to be the habit. So how do you break the habit of that repetition, practicing other habits, right? Practicing
Exactly.
your
Mhm.
mindset of other things.
And that's actually one of the, it sounds like I'm selling this book, but I'm not. But it is one of the tips. It is one of the tips that they say here, like don't waste time breaking old habits, build new habits, is what it says. So yeah, that's exactly what you just said. Just start to create new combinations that then, you can just throw out in performance and you won't have to think about it because they will have become like new, part of your muscle memory now. Yeah.
Yeah, those new neural pathways. I can't
Hmm.
remember. I think it was one of my. I think it was. I think it was a counseling session once where they were kind of telling me that the brain doesn't like to get rid of things. It wants to add things. So
Hmm.
like instead of like what you just said, like instead of thinking about it as I need to stop doing this, or I need to get out of this habit, or I need to get rid of my anxiety or my whatever it is, think about instead, what do I want to add in? And then just focusing on, okay, I want to add this, I want to add that, what do I want to create, and moving with intention in a more, I'm going to use the word positive, moving in intention in a more positive way. And as in, what do I want to add? Instead of moving towards, what do I want to get rid of, or what do I want to not do anymore? And so in teacher training, Carolina talks about that as well, as far as like when you're trying to get your students' bodies moving, um, telling them what you want them to do versus telling them what you don't want them to do, right? And when you're teaching, making sure that you're teaching in a way that you're saying, here's what we want to do, or here's what the movement should feel like or look like, and not showing them what you don't want the movement to look like, because the brain doesn't really doesn't really like, some students are, if they're so visual and they see you do something, they didn't register the fact that you said no, don't do that, and they saw you do it, so they're going to do it. So moving in that more like positive mindset or
Hmm.
positive way. I find that also having that transition on with turns can be challenging for some students too, because our feet are moving on the and then we're landing in that new position on the count. And so they're so focused on where you're going to be on that count, it's almost like they don't understand how to get there. So specifically, let's talk about the swivel step half turn, right? The swivel step half turn, it's like we don't do anything in life where we're just like pivoting around backwards. I mean, unless you've been in the military and you do that funky foot thing, right? So it's like that transition of pivoting on one foot, pivoting, moving your, like having that right foot be the base, for instance, so that you can land with that left foot behind. I find is so challenging too. So I think coming up with new ways um, to teach things and then add them in to the concepts can be really helpful. So, yeah, just getting kind of creative in how you teach a transition or how you teach something. One of the things that I really like about your class, Virginia, is just the combinations that you've put together. So you've put these combinations together, and then the next class, you've used some of those same steps, but then you've added other steps. And so it
Mhm.
just really gave this beautiful way of like, okay, you're familiar with this already. Now we're going to take that and we're going to make it a little more challenging, right? And now you're familiar with this, and now we're going to take some of what you already know and we're going to make it a little more challenging. And I just think that that's a beautiful way to transition, if you will, from your students feeling really familiar and having confidence in something, and then adding that little extra transition into that.
Mhm.
So I would like to talk a little bit now about kind of what your best advice for dancers that are struggling with that fluidity in their transitions, whether it's slow or fast. Yeah, what do you think where do you think the best place to start would be?
I think besides, repetition, of course, and drilling and practicing, um, when you're practicing and you hit a sticky point or you make a mistake, stop. Like, I don't keep going. Just identify the error and then start over and repeat it until you get through that and you get it correctly. Because if we keep moving, you're likely to make another mistake at another point and then forget about the first one that you made. And then you're going to start building on those errors and not really correct them, right? And then they will become habits and then you will not be able to fix them. So I would identify those sticky points and then focus on maybe one thing at a time and stop before you're exhausted. So practicing 5 minutes a day is better than practicing an hour a week. So little chunks of practice consistently. Um, and on a positive note, and this is something that I always do with my troupe, we have practice after classes and we practice for performances or whatever we're doing. Once we do it well enough and we've been practicing for a while, I'm like, we're gonna end on a positive note and just stop here because if we keep going, we're gonna stop messing it up and then we're going to leave like really disappointed and sad. So we did it well or pretty well up to this point. So let's just stop here, give it a break, sleep on it, and then we'll try it again next time. And then another one of the advice that this book gives is, and this might sound silly, but I think it works really well. When you go to bed, run it mentally. Like
Mm,
whatever you've been practicing on, like visualize it. Because I think visualization helps really well. Like when you're working on a performance and you have maybe like a set of movements that you want to do at a specific point in a song, just run through them mentally because that's going to help you solidify what you're doing and then you'll be able to do it better physically as well. Um, yeah, so that's what I would do. And then also, if you can, practice outside of class because, if you take class like 1 hour a week, that's probably not enough to build that practice and that fluidity that you're looking for. If you have somebody that you can practice with, that would be great. If you can teach that other person what you're trying to do, even better, because teaching is going to show you what you need and what you're lacking. Like when you have to teach to somebody else is when you identify the spots that you're missing or that you're misunderstanding. Um, Give each other feedback. So if I'm doing a combo and you're following me or like a set of movements, I'm going to ask you like, did you miss any of the movements? And like, why? Like, did I not maybe like my cue was not clear enough, or I didn't finish my previous movement, and that's why you missed the next one. Like that will help me identify where my transitions were lacking.
mm.
Um, yeah, so those are all things that we can use to get better at transitions, I think.
I love those. So I wrote some of these down. I love how you said like end on a positive note. Don't wear yourself out.
No,
Okay.
So
Yeah.
practice till you make it, but that doesn't
but
mean all
It
at
doesn't
one
have
time.
to be today. Exactly. Yeah, you have time, so it doesn't have to be all at once.
Yeah, doesn't have to be all at once. So practice till you make it. And I love the aspect of communication. So giving feedback, right? Learning how to give feedback, which is something that we do. I know everybody has some kind of aspect of this, I think, in their professional careers. We also really go into it a lot in technique for, no, sorry, in advanced teacher training. So learning how to give each other feedback, not just, well, I couldn't follow you when you did that. And like keeping it in a productive type of feedback that's very clear. Hey, I had trouble following. I think you're cutting this off. Let's try it again together. And then, yeah, finding those common points. And I love what you said about practicing a little bit also outside of class, which is, of course, part of the reason we have FCBDU, right? Being able to search, like, okay, my teacher taught the wraparound turn today, so I really want to practice it, and go out and FCBDU, use the little search bar for wraparound turn, or the vocabulary listing, go to wraparound turn, it'll show you all the classes, and take a class, 10-minute drill class with Lacey, or Carolina's picky technique, or Virginia's transitions that use the wraparound turns in them, or whatever it is, and practice that. But also, like, a reminder, you can get on a Zoom session, right? And one of you play the class at FCBDU and you practice together online. So there are a lot of really cool ways that we can practice together and inspire each other to practice outside of class.
And also because each teacher has a different way of explaining and presenting things. And I'm a firm believer that you can learn from everybody, like no matter how much experience or years of teaching they have behind or like in their belt, like, and maybe what your teacher said in class did not click, but then you take somebody else's class on FCBDU and you're like, oh, that's it. Like,
Yes.
yeah, like I was teaching the other day and we've done like swivel step traveling forwards and back a million times. And then I said something and everybody's like, oh, and I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, we've been doing this for like 5 years. But apparently I hadn't said that one thing and that's all, that's all I should have said. And yeah. So yeah, just take
Yes.
classes from everybody and something will always come out of it.
Exactly, exactly. I love that. There's some instructors here in the Pacific Northwest, and they'll have me come into their locations. Basically, I mean, like, they're my students, so they are teaching how, how they've been taught to teach and how they teach. But then I'll come in and do a workshop, and I will teach the exact same thing that they've been teaching for the last I don't know how many years, and they're like, oh, well, Deanna says, and the teacher's like, okay, well, yeah, do exactly what Deanna says, when it's exactly what they had been saying. It's just a different tone, a different, I don't know. Yeah, like you said, just something a little different.
Mhm.
I love that. Um, And then, oh, so we have some comments from YouTube, and one of them is Heather telling us. So backing it up, Heather's telling us a little bit about Dark Side. So Dark Side had three founders: Molly Mitchell, Ann Schaefer, and her. And Molly is a goth queen dance maven. So in all our early work, we leaned into the flavor of costuming and music, plus cookies. Oh, come to the dark side. We have cookies. Is that what that is?
Yep. Yeah, we always say that.
So cute. And then Bibi says hello. She's looking forward to seeing us in Brazil.
Yes.
Oh, we didn't even talk about Brazil yet. And then Robin's here. She says, one of Virginia's many baby dancers here, but I wanted to say I'm always enamored watching advanced dancers use the tension and release idea with their transitions. Ooh. Yeah. So the tension and release concepts within the transitions. Absolutely. I think that's part of this, like this tension, right?
Mhm.
Building up and then like having that, just like that grace. And of course, bringing that into the musicality. So a couple weeks ago, I took resistance bands into my level 1 class, which I never have done. I mean, I've done resistance band workshops, of course, but I took it into my level 1 class because I just wanted them to feel that tension in the arms
Hmm.
in like the figure eight instead of just like moving their arms like this. Like I really wanted them to feel that. And so yeah, we took resistance bands in there. So if you're into the whole concept of tension and release, practice with resistance bands. It's super fun and it changes your mindset of like engaging those back muscles for posture. And yeah, it might be fun to try those with transitions too.
I
Yeah.
wish I wish that all dance studios or dance spaces came with a pull-up bar because like that whole concept of tension and release came from thinking of when you're hanging on to a
Hmm.
pull-up bar and you let go one arm, you get the barrel turn kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's just so much you could do with an overhead bar to to identify your latissimus muscle, by feeling what that feels like. You're like, oh, oh, you know. So I really
Yeah.
thought there was like a portable pull-up bar that we could like pop up, you know, big enough to hang from. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
My Friday classes are at Lifetime Athletic Club, and I teach in a studio that has not only does it have disco lights and like a full on sound system and like TV monitors where I could play videos of dancers while I was teaching, but it also has weights and it has those bars, which Virginia, you're probably going to be more familiar with the name of them, but they're those long bars that you can use to like open up your shoulders.
Oh, the PVC pipes, probably.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
PVC pipe. I'm wondering if I could do a little class that's like holding that overhead and then, oh, I need to try that.
Yeah, because they're pretty light, so you should be able to hold them overhead. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of practice a little bit.
Yeah.
So Carolina, I'll see what I can put together. Maybe I'll do a little video next week of me trying that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Or
fun.
even if you could just hang the resistance band, over a door, because you need to be able to pull down on it.
Yeah,
With the
That's true.
PVC, you're holding it up and you can't really let go of it and swing away from it at the same time. But if
Hmm.
the band was like over something sturdy, you could feel that feeling of, well, you'd have to hold on to it like this. But when I let go of it, my body can swing because it's supported here, but swinging this way.
yeah.
Sorry, that was probably really
I
confusing.
love that. So let's put that challenge out to those of you that are watching. We want to see your most creative ways that you can practice transition concepts. Share them with us.
Yep.
Tag us on social. We want to see them. We want to see them. And of course, tag us as you take Virginia's classes and share with us something that you learned in that, right? So
Yeah,
I
I would
would
love
I
that.
love it when we get to see people's videos and they're telling us a little bit about what they learned in their class in the class that they took. Samantha Jane, who's joined us here on our live stream for YouTube, is so great about that. She just won our scholarship actually for participating in all
Yay.
of the challenges last year. Congratulations! Let's give Samantha
Yes.
a round of applause. She's the one that just took your class earlier, Virginia. And yeah, she's always so great about posting and then sharing a little bit about what she learned and how she's incorporating that into the video that she's posting.
Love
So
it.
that's another way to hold yourself accountable for your practice, right? Here's what I'm learning. Here's what I learned. Here's what I incorporated into this video, like practicing with intention. I think that's so important too.
Mhm.
All right. So if anybody has any questions, if you're joining us live and you have any questions for Virginia or Carolina regarding transitions or about Virginia's classes, feel free to let us know. And then I'd love to use this opportunity to plug a little bit about some things that maybe you have coming up, Virginia. So plugging your local classes or anything else that you'd like to share with us.
Well, I teach classes in Bloomington, Indiana, on Sundays. The name of my troupe is Dark Side Troupe, so you can follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. And I'm also willing to travel, so just let me know, and I'm there. And yeah, just looking forward to seeing how these classes go. I'm really excited to be part of this community now, and I would love to hear from you. So just let me know in the comments for the classes what other things you would like to see, and I'm just happy to bring them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so excited about us teaching together in Brazil next
Oh
year.
my gosh.
I
Fantastic.
know.
Cannot
It's
wait.
been a long time coming. We were supposed to go to Brazil
Yeah,
in 2020, I think.
2020, but something happened. I don't know why,
Yeah.
what, but we couldn't go. Yeah.
It's going to be super fun. So, if you are interested in taking general skills and you are in Central or South America or just want to travel to Brazil, it's going to be a really great opportunity to take general skills with me and Virginia. So, I think Carolina's joining us online for that one.
Yes, yes, I will. I will join through the magic of the internet.
All right, I'm going to give our live stream one more little check in. Oh, Vivi asked what the name of Virginia's troop is, Dark Side Troop. And that is, do you have a website, Virginia?
We do, darksidetroop.com.
There you
It's not super active. We do update it every once in a while with classes, but to be the most up to date, Instagram and Facebook. Yeah.
go. Okay. And
Awesome.
Samantha Jane said, thank you. I did incorporate the wraparound barrel and saw return combinations into her thank you video that she posted
Oh,
on FCBD or she posted on Instagram. So we'll have to check it out.
thank you.
So good. So good. Well, thank you both so much for joining me today here on our podcast. Virginia, I have been waiting for you to join us for so very long, and I'm glad that the planets aligned and you are here
Thank you.
with us. Please check out Virginia's new courses. The second one will come out tomorrow. It's called Practice Till You Make It. It's a 4-part series. She has also filmed another course on zills and practicing your finger symbols, and that will come out later this year. I wanted to split these out a little bit to like spread all the Virginia love throughout the year. So check out Practice Till You Make It. Carolina, is there anything else that you want to share with us before we head out?
Just thank you for allowing me to tag along. I love hearing all of the things. It's fantastic. I just think this is fantastic. So, Virginia, congratulations on a fantastic course. And Deanna,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for making all of this possible. It's terrific.
Thank you for making all of this possible. All right. Well, thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And don't forget to practice till you make it.